The shackles dug into her wrists, cold metal pressing against her deep violet skin. She didn't fight, didn't speak, didn't even raise her head as she was shoved forward. Her white, silver-streaked hair fell in tangled strands over her face, masking the dull glow of her luminous eyes. The human before her, Elias Kane, crossed his arms, leaning against the rusted hull of his aging cargo ship. The dim light of the hangar cast jagged shadows across his weathered face, his sharp green eyes narrowing as he observed the girl. "This her?" he asked, voice gruff, unimpressed. The armored figure that had dragged the girl here grunted. "That's her. Valeth, daughter of Lord Zyrak. Or was his daughter. He disowned her. Wants her dead." Elias let out a low whistle. "And you're just handing her over to me? For free?" "No," the alien bounty hunter, 8 feet tall, covered in thick plated armor, reached out a clawed hand, palm open. "You owe me, Kane. Debt settled." Elias scowled, scratching at his stubble. Hell of a way to settle a debt. He tilted his head, glancing at the girl again. "And why exactly does Zyrak want her dead?" The bounty hunter's shoulders tensed. He didn't answer. That was a bad sign. Elias sighed. He should have walked away. Should have told the bounty hunter to take his problem elsewhere. But instead, he found himself grabbing Valetha's arm, feeling how cold she was beneath the metal cuffs. She didn't flinch, didn't react, just stood there like a prisoner awaiting execution. He muttered under his breath, "This is gonna get me killed." And with that, he took her inside his ship. Valeth didn't speak. Elias sat across from her in the dimly lit cargo hold, his fingers drumming on the metal table between them. The ship hummed around them, the occasional creak of old machinery filling the silence. She kept her gaze down, her shackled hands resting in her lap. "You gonna talk?" Elias finally asked. No response. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "Look, kid, I don't know what your deal is, but I can't help you if you don't. I didn't ask for your help." Her voice was quiet, but firm. Elias blinked. It was the first thing she had said since she arrived. He leaned back, crossing his arms. "No, you didn't. But here you are." Silence again. Elias studied her. She looked wrong. Not in the way aliens usually looked different from humans. No, this was something else. Something off. Her breathing was too slow. Her skin was too pale. And her eyes, those glowing, swirling violet eyes, seemed to shift in color every time he looked directly at them. "What are you?" he asked, his voice softer this time. Valetha's hands clenched, metal cuffs rattling. "A mistake." Elias frowned. He didn't like that answer. Before he could push further, his ship's warning alarm blared. Incoming hostiles. Elias shot to his feet. Son of a... The ship lurched, metal groaning under sudden pressure. Outside, the night sky of the remote trading outpost lit up with streaks of red as energy blasts rained down. Someone had found them. Valetha's head snapped up, her glowing eyes narrowing. "They're here," she whispered. Elias grabbed his pistol from the table and glared at her. "Who the hell is they?" Before she could answer, the hull exploded. Elias hit the ground hard, the force of the blast knocking the air from his lungs. Smoke and fire filled the cargo hold, alarms shrieking as warning lights flickered. He coughed, forcing himself up, only to freeze when he saw Valeth. She was standing. Unshackled. And her eyes were burning white. The remains of her metal restraints lay shattered around her, the steel melted like wax. She turned toward the gaping hole in the ship's hull, where figures in dark armor were advancing through the smoke. The attackers. Elias barely had time to reach for his gun before the first shot was fired. A red plasma bolt streaked through the air, aimed straight for Vailith's chest. She caught it. Elias' brain short-circuited. Vailith caught the damn plasma shot in her bare hand. The energy crackled, twisting in her palm like a living thing before she crushed it, snuffing out the light. The armored figures hesitated. Then, all at once, they opened fire. Elias dove for cover, cursing as plasma bolts tore through the ship. He fired back, hitting one of the attackers square in the chest, sending them sprawling. Vailith didn't dodge. Didn't run. She walked forward. The air around her rippled, distorting like a heat wave. The next volley of plasma shots curved away from her, their energy dissolving mid-air. The soldiers shouted in panic. Elias had no idea what the hell he was witnessing, but his instinct screamed that Vailith wasn't just some alien noble's exiled daughter. She was something else. Something impossible. The attackers must have realized it too, because the next second, they retreated. They vanished into the night as suddenly as they had arrived, their ship streaking into the sky at impossible speed. And then, silence. Vailith stood in the ruined cargo hold, her eyes dimming back to violet. She swayed slightly before collapsing to her knees, gasping for breath. Elias stared at her, gun still gripped in his hands. "What the hell are you?" he demanded. Vailith looked up, her expression unreadable. "They'll come back," she murmured. "And next time, they won't run." Elias exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Yeah. He was in deep trouble. And he had a feeling this was just the beginning. The smell of burnt metal and scorched circuits filled the wrecked cargo hold. Sparks rained from damaged wiring, and smoke curled through the gaping hole in the hull where the unknown attackers had fled. Elias Kane crouched next to the unconscious alien girl, Vailith, his mind racing. She had stopped plasma fire with her bare hands. That wasn't normal. Not even for an alien. He had seen enough in his years as a smuggler and rogue trader to know when something wasn't right. And whatever Vailith was, she sure as hell wasn't some ordinary disowned noble. He reached out, pressing 2 fingers against her neck. Still breathing. But barely. Her skin was ice cold, and her strange, glowing eyes were shut tight. Yeah. This is bad. A flickering red hologram appeared in the air above his wrist, the ship's onboard AI, Juno, displaying critical damage reports. "Captain Kane, the ship has suffered catastrophic damage. Shields are down. Weapons are offline. Life support is failing. I strongly suggest immediate evacuation." Yeah, no kidding. Elias sighed, glancing around at the burning wreckage. His ship, the Tempest Runner, had taken worse hits before, but this time, it was different. The attack hadn't been about destroying the ship. They had come for Vailith. That meant they weren't done. Elias grabbed a survival pack from a nearby crate, slung it over his shoulder, and hoisted Vailith into his arms. She was lighter than she looked, her frame almost unnaturally weightless. "Captain, I detect incoming vessels. Estimated time to arrival, 2 minutes." Elias swore under his breath. Of course there's more. He rushed through the ruined corridors of his ship, his boots clanking against metal flooring as alarms wailed around him. Smoke stung his eyes, but he didn't slow down. His only chance was his personal escape craft, a small, fast shuttle docked at the rear of the ship. If he could get off this moon before the attackers returned, maybe, just maybe, he could figure out what the hell was going on. Minutes later, deep space. The Tempest Runner exploded behind them. Elias didn't look back. He kept his focus on the shuttle's controls, hands flying over the worn-out console as they shot into the darkness of space. Vailith lay in the co-pilot's seat, still unconscious. Her breathing was steady but shallow. Whatever she had done back in the cargo hold had drained her, badly. Elias exhaled, rubbing his temple. Alright, kid. Time to figure out what the hell you are. The shuttle's onboard scanners beeped, indicating an incoming transmission. Elias' stomach twisted. Unknown signal detected. He hesitated before pressing the accept button. A distorted voice crackled over the comms. Kane. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Elias clenched his jaw. I don't know what you're talking about. A low chuckle echoed through the transmission. Surrender the girl, and we'll let you live. Elias glanced at Valeth. Even unconscious, she looked different now. More alien than before. More dangerous. He made his decision. Yeah. No deal. Then, he cut the transmission and slammed the thrusters to max, launching the shuttle into deep space at breakneck speed. If they wanted her, they'd have to catch him first. The hidden world, a smuggler's sanctuary. The planet Praxis 9 wasn't exactly a safe place. It was a shadow world, hidden on the edge of known space, where criminals, bounty hunters, and rogue traders gathered away from the eyes of the Galactic Coalition. It was also the only place Elias knew where he could lay low and get answers. As the shuttle touched down on the dusty landing platform of a decrepit outpost, Elias sighed and looked over at Valeth. She was awake now. Barely. Her glowing eyes flickered as she studied him. Where are we? She whispered. Safe. For now. Elias unbuckled his harness. Don't suppose you're in the mood to explain why the hell an entire death squad was after you? Valeth hesitated. Her fingers curled into fists. You shouldn't have helped me. Yeah, well. I did. Her gaze locked onto his, something unreadable flickering in her expression. Then, she looked away. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Elias scoffed. Try me. Valeth's jaw tightened. My father is afraid of me. Elias raised an eyebrow. Lord Zyrak? One of the most feared warlords in the galaxy. Afraid of you? She nodded. Elias leaned back against the pilot's seat. All right. Why? Valeth exhaled. Because I know the truth. A chill ran down Elias' spine. He didn't like that answer. Before he could ask more, the shuttle's proximity alarm blared. Hostiles detected. Elias cursed. They found us. The betrayal. Elias grabbed his pistol and motioned for Valeth to stay low as he peeked through the shuttle's viewport. 3 figures approached. Armed. Dangerous. One of them was Rock Heron, an old friend of Elias. A bounty hunter and information broker who had saved his life once. And now, from the look on his face, he was here to collect. Elias opened the hatch. Rock. Been a while. Rock grinned. Not long enough, Kane. He stepped forward, his massive reptilian form towering over Elias. You've got something valuable on board. Elias kept his gun at his side. You're making a mistake. Rock tilted his head. No, Kane. You did. Before Elias could react, a stun blast hit his chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Valeth's scream echoed in his ears as darkness took him. Captured. Elias awoke to cold metal against his skin. His hands were bound, and his head pounded. They were inside a dark, industrial facility, the walls lined with strange machinery. Valeth was beside him, also restrained. She was awake now, her glowing eyes filled with anger. Rock and his men stood nearby, speaking with a shadowy figure, a human, clad in a long coat, his face obscured by the dim light. Lord Zyrak will pay handsomely for her, the man was saying. Or, if he doesn't, we'll sell her to the highest bidder. Elias struggled against his restraints. You idiots have no idea what you're messing with. The man turned, finally stepping into the light. Elias' breath caught. He knew this man. Commander Reyes. A high-ranking officer of the Galactic Intelligence Division. What the hell is this? Elias growled. Reyes smirked. Oh, Kane. This isn't just about her. His gaze flicked to Valeth. It's about what she knows. Valeth's jaw clenched. Reyes took a step closer. So tell me, girl, what exactly did you uncover that made your father so desperate to kill you? Silence. Then, Valeth smiled. You're too late, she whispered. A low hum filled the air. The lights flickered. And then, the entire facility shook as something ancient and powerful awakened. The facility trembled. Metal groaned as energy pulsed through the walls, and flickering lights cast eerie shadows over the room. Something ancient had awoken. Elias Kane yanked at his restraints, his instincts screaming that they were seconds away from disaster. Valeth's glowing eyes locked onto Commander Reyes, a dangerous smirk playing on her lips. You wanted to know what I discovered? Her voice was ice. I'll show you. Then, she closed her eyes. The world exploded into chaos. The storm unleashed. A shockwave of energy blasted outward from Valeth, short-circuiting every piece of technology in the room. The restraints shattered like brittle glass. Sparks erupted from the walls. The lights flickered out, plunging everything into darkness. Alarms blared. Elias hit the ground hard, his arms suddenly free. His instincts kicked in, he rolled, grabbed a fallen guard's pistol, and snapped to his feet. Juno, he hissed, tapping his wrist device. Give me a light. His AI flickered to life, casting a pale blue glow around them. Valeth stood in the center of the room. She was changing. The veins along her arms pulsed with golden light, her skin shimmered, and the air around her warped like heat off a starship engine. Even the hardened mercenaries in the room took a step back. Commander Reyes cursed, pulling his weapon. Stop her. Too late. Valeth opened her eyes. Elias barely had time to register what happened next. The entire ceiling ripped apart, as if some invisible force had torn it open from the inside. A massive energy field expanded outward, engulfing the facility. Elias felt something pulling at his mind, a presence vast and unfathomable, like staring into the abyss of deep space. And then, everything went silent. The forbidden vault. When Elias opened his eyes, he wasn't in the facility anymore. He was somewhere else. The walls pulsed with an unnatural glow, etched with symbols he didn't recognize. The air was thick, almost liquid, and the gravity felt off. Valeth stood nearby, staring at something ahead. Elias followed her gaze, and his breath caught. They were inside a vault. And at its center stood an impossibly ancient machine, humming with energy. What the hell is this? Elias whispered. Valeth turned to him, her expression unreadable. This is what my father is afraid of. Elias frowned. A machine? She shook her head. Not just a machine. A prison. Elias' pulse quickened. For what? Valeth hesitated. A weapon. A deep voice rumbled through the chamber, making the ground vibrate. Not a weapon. A being. The vault shuddered as the machine began to awaken. Elias' gut twisted. Oh, that's not good. The secret of the ancients. The machine split apart, revealing a massive obsidian sarcophagus at its core. Strange, unreadable symbols burned across its surface. Valeth stepped forward. I've seen this in my father's archives, she murmured. They call it the Harbinger. Elias did not like that name. Before he could stop her, Valeth placed her hand against the sarcophagus. The entire room roared to life. A wave of energy slammed into Elias, knocking him back. He gasped, feeling something invade his thoughts, visions, memories that weren't his. Planets burning. Stars collapsing. A war older than history itself. The Harbinger wasn't just a being. It was a god. Valeth staggered, clutching her head as the machine's hum grew louder. Commander Raya's voice echoed from the far side of the vault. "Step away, girl." Elias turned. Raya's and his soldiers had followed them in. The commander leveled a weapon at Valeth. "You have no idea what you're messing with." Valetha's gaze was fierce. "Neither do you." Then, the sarcophagus cracked open. And something inside began to move. The hunter awakens. Elias felt it before he saw it. A pressure in his chest, like standing too close to a star's gravity well. The air rippled, warping around the thing emerging from the sarcophagus. It was tall, impossibly so, its body a shifting mass of black and gold, its face obscured by a featureless obsidian mask. Elias' instincts screamed. Raya's took a step back, his voice tight. "What is that?" Valeth whispered, "The first of them." The being turned its head, regarding the people in the room. Then, it spoke, not with words, but directly into their minds. "Who dares wake me?" Elias froze. The creature's presence was overwhelming, vast, ancient, and utterly alien. Raya's recovered first, lifting his rifle. "Whatever the hell you are, you're not leaving this place." He fired. The shot never landed. The Harbinger raised a hand, and time itself seemed to bend around it. The energy bolt froze midair, then reversed, slamming back into Raya's with bone-crushing force. The commander hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. Panic spread through the soldiers. Some ran. Some fired wildly. None of it mattered. The Harbinger moved. And everything changed. Escape or extinction. Elias knew one thing: they needed to run. Now. He grabbed Valetha's arm. "We need to go." She hesitated. "But." "No. No buts." Elias pulled her toward the exit. "I don't care if that thing holds the secrets of the universe. It is going to kill us." The vault shook violently as the Harbinger reached out, touching the walls. The symbols lit up. And suddenly, the entire facility began collapsing. Elias sprinted toward the exit, dragging Valeth behind him as the floor cracked beneath their feet. Raya's and his remaining soldiers fled in the opposite direction, but Elias didn't care. He didn't even look back. They burst through the main doors just as the vault behind them imploded, sucking itself into a singularity. Then, silence. Valeth collapsed onto her knees, breathing hard. Elias doubled over, hands on his knees. "Tell me we're done with the ancient death gods." Valeth didn't answer. She was staring at the sky. Elias followed her gaze, and his stomach dropped. Above them, massive alien warships were descending. And leading them was a vessel Elias knew too well. Lord Zyrak had arrived. And he was not alone. The sky burned with the glow of descending warships. Elias Kane gritted his teeth as his stomach twisted. Lord Zyrak's flagship, an ominous, jagged colossus of black and violet metal, loomed above them, flanked by dozens of smaller, heavily armed vessels. This wasn't just a retrieval. This was an invasion. Beside him, Valeth was silent, her glowing eyes fixed on the sky. There was something different about her, an energy that wasn't there before. She was changing. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. They had just survived a death god's awakening, barely escaping a collapsing vault, and now this? His luck was complete trash. "Tell me you have a plan," he muttered. Valetha's expression was unreadable. "We fight." Elias stared. Against that? He pointed at the incoming fleet. We have a sidearm and a malfunctioning wrist AI. They have orbital cannons. Velith turned to face him fully. We have more than that. A low rumble vibrated through the ground. Elias' blood ran cold. What did you do? Velith exhaled, her body glowing faintly in the dim light. I called it. The Harbinger had not been destroyed. And now, it was awake. Descent of the Tyrant. A deep boom echoed across the wasteland as Lord Zyrak's ship touched down. The warlord of the Veilthi Dominion emerged, a towering figure, draped in ornate battle armor, his four glowing crimson eyes radiating menace. Elias had seen monsters before, but Zyrak was something else. Flanked by an elite force of bio-enhanced enforcers, he moved with a calculated grace, each step sending subtle tremors through the ground. His gaze fell on Velith. His disowned daughter. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, his voice rumbled like thunder. You are no longer my blood. Velith met his gaze without fear. That makes two of us. Zyrak's expression was stone. You have defiled the sanctity of the vault. His voice darkened. You have awoken something that should never have risen again. Velith didn't flinch. Then you should have destroyed it when you had the chance. A flicker of something, anger, crossed Zyrak's face. Elias, watching the exchange, slowly reached for his weapon. If this went south, he needed a way out. Zyrak's lips curled. You always were weak, Velith. Foolish. A disgrace to our people. His voice hardened. But this ends now. He lifted a hand. The execution order was given. The wrath of the forgotten. Before the enforcers could fire. The ground exploded. A wave of energy erupted from beneath them as the air itself distorted. A deep, inhuman rumble filled the sky. Elias froze. The Harbinger had arrived. It rose from the ruins of the vault, its obsidian form shifting like liquid darkness, massive beyond reason. The sky dimmed as it moved, its very presence warping reality. Zyrak's warriors hesitated. Even the warlord himself took a step back. Impossible, Zyrak muttered. Velith's voice was soft, but filled with something new, power. I am not weak. She lifted a hand, and the Harbinger obeyed. War in the wasteland. Everything happened at once. The Harbinger attacked. Zyrak's forces unleashed hell. Elias barely had time to react before the entire battlefield became a maelstrom of destruction. The Harbinger moved like a nightmare, shifting through space itself, tearing through enemy ranks with impossible speed. Weapons fire simply vanished before reaching it. Elias ducked as an explosion ripped apart the ground nearby. He fired blindly, hitting an enforcer in the chest, sending him sprawling. Velith stood in the middle of it all, untouched. Her eyes burned with golden fire as she raised her arms. Lightning tore through the battlefield. Zyrak's forces screamed as the ground itself turned against them, as if the very fabric of the planet had become Velith's weapon. Elias had seen many things in his life. But this? This was something new. Father against daughter. Zyrak moved fast. 1 second, he was across the battlefield. The next, he was in front of Velith. His fist, enhanced by centuries of bioengineering, slammed into her chest. Velith flew back, smashing into a jagged rock formation. Elias cursed. Velith. Zyrak stalked forward, his presence a force of nature. You think yourself powerful, he growled. You are nothing. Velith wiped blood from her lip. And smiled. Try and kill me, then. The battle erupted anew. The breaking point. The fight between father and daughter was unlike anything Elias had ever witnessed. Each clash of their strikes sent shockwaves through the battlefield. Zyrak fought with raw, brutal efficiency, a warrior who had conquered dozens of star systems. Vayleth, however, was something else entirely. She didn't just fight, she commanded the very elements of the battlefield. Energy surged around her like a living thing, her movements a dance of death. She dodged, countered, struck with impossible precision. For the first time in his life, Zyrak was on the defensive. But then, he made his move. A blade erupted from his wrist armor, black as the void itself. He lunged. Vayleth barely had time to react. The blade sank into her side. The fall and the rise. Elias saw red. He moved without thinking. With a roar, he fired his weapon, striking Zyrak in the side, enough to distract him. Vayleth took the opening. With one last surge of energy, she unleashed everything. Lightning erupted from her body. Zyrak screamed as the force of it lifted him off the ground, his armor melting, his form twisting in agony. The warlord of the Dominion fell. Silence followed. Elias exhaled. Holy hell! Vayleth staggered, clutching her wound. Elias caught her. Stay with me. She nodded weakly. It's over. Elias looked up. The Harbinger stood motionless. The battlefield was silent. Zyrak's forces had fled. For the first time, Vayleth was truly free. But something still felt unfinished. Elias turned his gaze to the sky. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The battlefield was silent. Only the distant sound of crackling energy and the hiss of cooling metal filled the wasteland. The sky above, once lit with fire and destruction, was now an eerie expanse of dark clouds, shifting unnaturally as if the planet itself was watching. Elias Kane's breath was ragged. He wiped sweat and grime from his face, his hands still shaking from the chaos that had just unfolded. Vayleth leaned against him, her body weak but her eyes burning with something new. Power. And fear. Lord Zyrak, the tyrant warlord, lay motionless in the dust, his once imposing armor now blackened and fractured, his form barely recognizable beneath the ruins of his own ambition. The warlord of the Vaylthi Dominion had fallen. But this wasn't over. Elias knew it. So did Vayleth. She exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. Something's wrong. The war after the war. The Harbinger loomed motionless at the edge of the battlefield, its shifting form unreadable, like a living shadow carved from the void itself. Elias kept a wary eye on it. The ancient force had obeyed Vayleth before, but it had a will of its own. That much was clear. She had awakened it, but for how long could she control it? A sudden pulse of energy rippled through the air, and Elias flinched as Zyrak's fallen flagship erupted into a burst of blue fire in the distance. The wreckage of the warlord's fleet still hovered in the upper atmosphere. If any survivors remained, they were either watching or planning. Elias turned to Vayleth. Your people aren't just going to let this go. Vayleth's expression was grim. I know. She winced as she touched her side, the wound from Zyrak's blade still smoldering with unnatural energy. Elias had seen a lot of battlefield injuries. This was different. You're still bleeding, he muttered. Vayleth ignored him. Instead, her gaze was fixed on the sky. Elias followed her stare, and felt his gut tighten. A new fleet had appeared. Not Vaylthi ships. Something else. Something worse. The reckoning comes. The first energy blasts struck without warning. The ground shook as an unseen force ripped through the battlefield, sending shockwaves that knocked Elias and Vayleth back. The sky darkened further, unnatural storm clouds twisting like a living thing. Then, they arrived. Dark ships. Sleek. Silent. Unmarked. They didn't move like normal vessels. They almost seemed to phase in and out of reality, flickering at the edges as if they existed in multiple places at once. Elias had seen a lot of ships in his time. These weren't ships. They were predators. Vailitha's fingers curled into fists. The Dominion didn't send them. Elias didn't need to ask. He already knew. The real enemy had arrived. The architects of fate. A tall figure emerged from the nearest ship. Its body was wrapped in a flowing cloak that seemed to drink in the light, its form humanoid but wrong, its proportions just slightly off, as if it wasn't meant to exist in this reality. Elias felt an instinctive revulsion, an animalistic warning deep in his brain. This thing didn't belong. Vailith stiffened beside him. "They're here for the Harbinger," she whispered. The figure spoke, its voice like 1,000 discordant echoes. "You have broken the cycle." Elias clenched his fists. "What the hell does that mean?" The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering him for the first time. Then it turned to Vailith. The Ancient One was not meant to rise again. Vailith lifted her chin. "You mean you never wanted it to rise?" A moment of silence. Then, the figure took a step forward, and the entire world shuddered. Elias swore under his breath. "That's a bad sign." Vailitha's grip tightened. "Get ready to run." "Run where?" Then. They attacked. The unseen war. The first blast of energy was silent. No sound. No warning. 1 second, Elias was standing. The next, the ground wasn't beneath him anymore. A force ripped him backwards, slamming him against the jagged remains of a fallen warship. The impact sent pain exploding through his ribs. He gasped. Vailith was already moving. Lightning erupted from her fingertips, arcing toward the cloaked figures, but the energy simply bent around them, as if reality itself refused to touch them. The lead figure raised a single hand. Vailith froze. Not by choice. She was being held in place, suspended in the air by an unseen force, her body rigid as if locked between two opposing gravities. Elias forced himself to his feet. That was enough of that. He lifted his weapon. Fired. The bullet never reached its target. It just vanished. His blood turned cold. Vailitha's breath was ragged. "Elias, go." "Not a chance," he snapped. The figure spoke again. "The Harbinger must return to silence." Vailith gritted her teeth. "And if I refuse?" The figure's head tilted. "Then we will erase you from time." Elias cursed. "See? That's the kind of thing you mention at the start of a conversation." The figure lifted its hand again. And the Harbinger moved. The awakening of the Ancient One. The dark colossus at the edge of the battlefield, the thing Vailith had bound to her will, shifted. It was watching. And choosing. The air cracked with unseen power as the Harbinger turned its gaze toward the cloaked figures. For the first time. The unknown beings hesitated. Elias barely had time to breathe before the Harbinger acted. A pulse of energy erupted from its form, a ripple through time and space itself. The figures vanished, but not as if they had been destroyed. As if they had been rewritten. Reality snapped back into place. Elias blinked. The sky had cleared. The ships were gone. Only Vailith remained, standing in the ruins of everything they had just fought for. Her breathing was uneven. She turned to Elias, her voice trembling. "What have we done?" Elias looked around. Nothing was the same anymore. Because they had won a battle they weren't supposed to. And now, the galaxy would pay the price. The galaxy was silent. At least, that was how it seemed. But in the void between stars, something moved. Something vast. Something angry. The Harbinger's awakening had not gone unnoticed. And now, reality itself was unraveling. A war that shouldn't have happened. Elias Kane stared at the sky. Or what used to be the sky. Above them, the stars flickered, shifting in and out of focus like a glitching simulation. The battlefield where they had fought Lord Zyrak was now eerily still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Valeth stood beside him, her body still trembling from what had just happened. The cloaked figures, the beings who had tried to erase her, were gone. Not killed. Not destroyed. Erased. Like they had never existed at all. And the Harbinger had done it with a mere thought. Valetha's voice was hoarse. We broke something. Elias didn't argue. Because she was right. The architect's return. The air rippled. And then, without warning, they came back. Not the same cloaked figures. Something worse. The true architects had arrived. A fleet of impossible ships flickered into existence above them, vast and alien beyond comprehension. Their design seemed almost fluid, shifting and warping as if they refused to settle on a single form. Then, one of them spoke. Not through sound. But directly into their minds. You defied the order of existence. Elias's teeth clenched. The voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed. Valeth lifted her chin, defiant even now. We won. You can't change that. A pause. Then. Winning was never the point. Surviving the consequences is. The sky cracked open. The unraveling. Elias barely had time to react before reality itself twisted. The battlefield stretched and distorted, like something was trying to pull them apart on a molecular level. The Harbinger shifted in response. A deep, resonating hum filled the air, vibrating through Elias's bones. The ancient entity had chosen Valeth as its wielder, but now, even it seemed uncertain. Because this was bigger than war. This was about the fabric of reality itself. The architects had come to fix the mistake. And Elias and Valeth were the mistake. The choice. The lead architect descended. It was enormous, towering over them, its form flickering between a humanoid silhouette and something far less recognizable. Elias took a step forward, hand gripping his weapon. He knew it was useless, but it made him feel less powerless. The architect's voice was calm. Your interference has disrupted the flow. The cycle must be restored. Valetha's eyes burned. You mean you want to erase us? A long silence. Then. Not erase. Rewrite. Elias frowned. Rewrite? The architect turned toward Valeth. You were never meant to be here. You were cast away for a reason. We offered your father a choice, exile you or risk breaking the cycle. He chose exile. And now, you have proven why that choice was necessary. Valetha's breath caught. Elias swore under his breath. This wasn't just about war. This was about her. The architect continued. You are an anomaly. The Harbinger should never have chosen you. But now that it has, there are only two paths forward. Elias's grip tightened. And what are those? The architect's form solidified. You surrender the Harbinger. We restore the timeline. The galaxy forgets this war ever happened. Valetha's voice was cold. And the second option? The architect tilted its head. You keep your power. And the universe breaks. The burden of a hero. The choice was impossible. Surrender the Harbinger and let the architects erase everything, rewriting history so that none of this had ever happened. Or keep it, keep their victory, but risk shattering reality itself. Elias looked at Valeth. She was trembling. Not with fear. With understanding. She had spent her whole life being told she was unworthy. A disappointment to her people. A disgrace to her father. And now, the galaxy itself was saying the same thing. Telling her she was a mistake. That she shouldn't exist. Her fists clenched. She had spent too long letting others decide her worth. Not anymore. She turned to Elias. Do you trust me? Elias didn't hesitate. With my life. Valeth exhaled. Then she turned to the architect. And made her choice. The unthinkable decision. Valeth raised her hands. The harbinger stirred. The architects braced themselves. But she didn't attack. Instead, she did something no one expected. She let go. The harbinger screamed. A shockwave of energy ripped through the sky, but Valeth didn't fight it. She released the power. And in that moment, something changed. The architect froze. The galaxy held its breath. And the harbinger, the ancient force that had waited eons for a wielder, faded. Gone. Not taken. Not stolen. But given up willingly. Elias's heart pounded. The architects had expected a fight. A war. A defiance that would force them to erase everything. But Valeth had done something else. She had chosen to be free. And in doing so, she had broken their hold. The architect's form flickered. Impossible. Valeth lifted her chin. Rewrite that. A pause. Then, slowly, the sky healed. The fabric of reality stitched itself back together. The architects, once so sure of their dominion over fate, found themselves powerless. Because for the first time, someone had walked away. Not as a warrior. Not as a conqueror. But as a free being. The legend begins. The architects vanished. The war was over. Not because of violence. But because someone had chosen to end the cycle. Elias stood beside Valeth as the battlefield settled into silence. He exhaled. Well, that was something. Valeth chuckled, exhausted but at peace. Elias looked at her. So, what now? Valeth smirked. Now? She turned to the endless stars, the universe wide open before them. Now we find out who I really am. And with that, they walked into the unknown. 2 wanderers. 2 survivors. And the first free beings in the history of the galaxy.